the hour has struck. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the joint meeting of the North Public Utility Board of Commissioners and Sewer Authority for Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. We've got people on possibly by telephone and by video conference. So I would ask all who are on in that manner to mute your devices when you're not speaking, and when you do speak, state your name for clarity of the record. All right, moving on to agenda item 2, which is a 15-minute public comment period. Are there any members of the public on who would like to speak tonight? Anybody on? No members on. All right, I'll ask one more time. Any members of the public on who would like to speak? All right, hearing none, move on to approval.
Yeah, sorry, can I just bring one thing up? Earlier this afternoon, Nancy DePietro of 157 Broad Street came into my office. She said she was not able to make the meeting tonight. Would like to thank us for the work we've been doing on her sewer service and the sewer in her street, and specifically want to thank 3 of her employees. Russell McGregor, who is the foreman of the collection system crew, Nolan Foley, and Phil McMahon. So that's our collections team, and she was very grateful for the work they're doing, the communication, and all the work that they've done to make her project go a lot smoother. So, excellent. It's rare when we get somebody who says anything positive, even though we do great things, and it's even rarer when they come in person to tell us, and she wanted the board to hear that as well.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, Chris. All right, moving on to approval of the minutes. To your board package, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion too.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Bob. All right. All right. Is there any discussion on approval of the minutes? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right. The motion carries. The minutes are approved. All right. Moving on to agenda item 4, which is the information updates, which are also in your board package. We'll start off with the leadership team template. Are there any questions on the leadership or comments on the leadership team template? I have one. Is John Colby on?
Yes.
All right, so
John, can you hear us?
yeah.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you, John. So we had this smishing. I never heard of smishing, but I looked it up. So that involves a text message that was sent, a made-up text message sent out looking for information. Is that? I'm sorry. Is that the isolated incident, or was that going on in the last month? So.
No, that was one isolated incident. Unfortunately, that was your ID that someone tried to mimic. It wasn't something that was generated from us, nothing that we could necessarily block, but they were just kind of using your name in vain. It was the wrong phone number. They were just saying that they were you, just an impersonation kind of a problem. Luckily, what we've done to do cybersecurity education to make people aware of this kind of thing, people didn't fall for it. So, you know, from there, it's one of those things where it just becomes a byproduct of where we are right now in the world, that these smishing and phishing and other incidents like that just seem to happen periodically. But we had no breaches from it. You know, we've taken all the appropriate precautions, and we're trying to do what we can to filter things. And that number was blocked pretty quick.
All right, thanks, John.
Okay. So I believe we have our co-commissioners now joined by
Good.
Steve, you confirm that? Here we are. Sean is there.
Good.
And Mike is there.
All right, let the record reflect that Michael and Sean have joined the meeting. All right, the interesting thing about that, I got a text. Thank you, Sean. I got a text or email. The text said, "Hey, was this you?" And I looked at it, and the spelling was S-T-E-W-A-R-D, which is not the way I spell my name. So right away I knew it probably didn't come from my phone. It was all internal. Yeah, here. That's interesting.
Yep.
Anyway, I have one question for Eric. Bean Hill Substation power line carrier upgrade. And it's talking about this improved communication with Eversource, et cetera, et cetera. And I had my power go out the other day, and then
Sorry about
I don't know if it was your fault, but it said in the paper that it was a result of a communication failure. So was that related to this in some fashion?
Well, we use the power line carrier, so it is somewhat related, but not because it didn't work. So what actually happened is we had a breaker that connects our 1000 line to our 1675 line. Those are the two transmission lines that come into the Bean Hill substation. That breaker failed to operate correctly while we were restoring the 1000 line after Eversource had completed maintenance on it. Because that breaker failed to operate as a defense mechanism for the transmission system at large, it actually communicated to tunnel substation and Montville substation, which feed us,
Yeah.
to open up that line to protect the breaker, and that's why the lights went off. Yeah.
It was a communication to the grid was the issue.
Right. Okay, interesting.
One failure, miscommunication going out.
All right. Well, I was on the way to going to bed, so I just went to bed.
So this may not have anything to do with the outage, but what's the status of the 345 substation upgrades?
That's in this year's budget for design,
Yeah,
and we're continuing to apply for new grants for that. We missed out on round one, we're not selected. It's a highly selective process. And when you look at nationwide, they're talking 15 or so groups that are selected for it. So when you look at gas, there's a lot of money getting out to the companies. When you look at water and sewer, there's money being spread all around. In electric, they chose to make it very selective. So we're gonna have to look at other ways of going or going out and bonding it once we get this design. So the idea is to get it designed and then continue to apply, see if anything else comes up, and then go out and bond or finance to get the work done.
I don't question what you're saying, but I think it's odd because the Biden administration is so anti-gas and pro-electric, you would think that the money allocation would be opposite.
A lot of money, very few projects.
Oh, okay.
Every place else is a lot of money, a lot of projects. It makes no sense, and they have a special carve out for municipals. So 30% is going to be in municipals. There are 2,000 public power systems in the United States. And of those 2,000, if you looked at carve out, that's 3 to 5 projects for municipals out of 2,000. That's more than a little competitive.
Yeah, and in this last round, there were 150 of those small municipals that applied for that round for what would be 3 or 4. So very, very competitive.
Okay.
And we asked these questions out at the conference. Once again, nobody could say it and made any sense, and that's just the reality of how they're administrating. And there also is no group that has been in place to administer it, where water, clean water, drinking water, it's just funneling money into existing programs.
All right, thanks.
All right, are there any additional questions or comments on the leadership team template? That's okay. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the financial update. Are there any comments or questions on the financial update? All right, Lori gets off easy. Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the strategic plan dashboard. Are there any questions or comments on the strategic plan dashboard? All right, here we go. We're making tremendous progress here. Move on to agenda item 5, which is the CMEC update, which is myself. So, as discussed at our last several meetings, the price of natural gas has returned to historic lows with the Henry Hub price at $2.
This is Mike.
Mike? Yes, Mike, how you doing?
Oh, good. I didn't know if you could hear me. Okay, thank you.
Right here. Thank you, sir. All right. With the Henry Hub price at $2.10 per decatherm, Algonquin City gate price at $1.55 per decatherm. I think it's pretty close to all the wall. The LMP for May came in at $26.35 per megawatt hour, and our hedge position was $42.27. So not too bad. This winter's projections are following historic trends, so with hope we can return to our pre-Ukraine war wholesale prices. There were several articles in the paper concerning legal expenses of the defendants and CMEX's desire to stop all payments with the convictions. The affirmation and undertaking agreement signed by the defendants clearly states that legal expenses will be repaid upon a guilty verdict. However, the matter is not settled and will wind up being decided in court. And already CMEX has received a formal complaint from the former CEO's attorney suggesting CMEX's position lacks merit. Newspaper article noted the legal fees have exceeded $9.2 million, of which the indemnification insurance company Sweden paid only $5.2 million, leaving CMEX to pay $4 million. And those legal fees will continue with the second trial for improper reimbursement of travel expenses by the former NPU chairman. The board approved a resolution to allow the CEO to negotiate a settlement with Tesla, the contractor for the community solar garden. The solar garden has been underperforming and Tesla has been non-responsive to CMEX requests for maintenance and improved performance batteries. The settlement should break in CMEX's favor and allow us to reduce the monthly loss from this project, so stay tuned. The losses associated with the community solar garden and the sub-base fuel cell are the direct result of poor negotiating on the part of the former CEO and inadequate information provided to the board to allow proper scrutiny. The new CEO, David Meisinger, has done his level best to turn lemons into lemonade, renegotiating contracts using underperformance as the lever to pry concessions, and if successful, will save ratepayers millions of dollars. As it currently stands, these two projects, which have 20-year PPAs, are budgeted to lose a combined $2 million per year. And if David is successful, we may be able to cut that number in half. So if you thought expensing $1.2 million for parties in Kentucky is to be bad, and it was, and then expensing $4 million for legal fees in counting, seeking justice to be outrageous, and it is, and take a deep breath and fight down hard on losses of $1 million per year over the next 15 to 20 years, all brought about by bad decisions of and poor negotiating by the former CEO.
Just one point on that is the restitution hearings will be on July 12th. And once again, any comments are going to be to the chair and the chair to, work with Chris Riley to make sure. But it's going to be, potentially some front page headlines at the end on July 12th.
Just one quick comment on certainly the community solar gardens, and potentially the sub-base unit too. One of the negotiating problems is that apparently CMEX did not negotiate into the purchase power agreement a performance
Right, there was
requirement.
there was no penalty for lack of performance, which is just a huge oversight. It's unbelievable. So,
Well, in a true partnership, they want to generate electrons, we want to buy electrons. They have decided that they're not putting their effort into making sure that electrons are being generated. So while I think anything going forward is a great lessons learned, I think in hindsight, if you would have been there, well, why wouldn't they want to have these things performing? They only make money if they're performing, right?
yeah, the whole thing was crazy. Isn't that Brightside did that? Isn't that the name of the company?
Brightfields,
Brightfield,
Solar City and Brightfields.
And Solar City.
And Solar City,
Solar City
got
was,
bought out by Tesla.
yeah, that was like Elon's brother or something like that on Solar City. So they were sort of together from a family standpoint. Then they just got together and now it's all Tesla. Yeah, not a good PPA at all. All right, are there any questions or comments on the CMEX report? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the Financial and Audit Subcommittee update. Michael, that's yourself.
Mike, are you with us?
Michael?
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we are here.
Okay, thank you. So, the Finance and Audit Subcommittee meeting was held on May 2. And, it consisted of several presentations, basically by Laura. And the first one dealt with the first summary of the new key performance indicators that that we asked to be established in terms of for the purpose. I'm having trouble speaking. I got whacked with Bell's palsy this weekend, so it might be hard to understand. Sorry. The purpose of it was to kind of give us a perspective on our financial performance based on certain measuring systems in the financial industry, including those used by the bonding agencies, which we were probably going to need anyway to get the desired rating with Moody's for borrowing and whatnot. And Laura and her crew did a great job. Came up with I think it was 7 or 8 different ratios, and for the most part, they looked really good. There was a little bit of a surprise because of the pension obligation bond transaction that occurred. So it distorted the comparison of the current balance sheet ratio with the previous year because it wasn't there and it was a large liability. Even though it replaced another liability, this liability was more formal and it affected the ratio. But, that can be explained to the credit rating agencies. But it was a very nice job. I like to compliment Laura and her staff. And I thought it was really great. And now as we go through time, we'll have the same situation next year. It'll be a more realistic comparison against the previous year's result. And I was very happy, and I think everybody appreciated it. And then, and we're going. I think we will be following up with. I don't know if Laura's going to give us some more information on that at this meeting or not, but certainly when we do the annual review, I think that should be part of the presentation. How are the key performance indicators affected during by the operating results of the year? So the other presentation by Laura was an overview of the cost of service project and schedule, and the cost analysis data was finalized in early May. The rate design process begun in June. Baker Tilly will present the results at our workshop on Thursday, tomorrow, I believe, to give us more information on that. And I think we left it at that. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Yeah, and the workshop is Thursday from 2 to 6 p.m.
Yes, we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions of Michael and the Finance and Audit Subcommittees? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the APP conference update. Chris, what can you tell?
All right. So last week we had the APPA conference in Seattle, Washington, and Jeff, Eric, and Sean joined me out there for the conference. And when you go to the conference, they typically have headline speakers, and then they have a whole bunch of breakout workshops. So we all split up and conquered all of those, talked to a lot of vendors, heard a lot about industry and the trends and what's going on. The 3 major speakers were Jessica Yellen, who's a former CNN White House chief reporter, and she talked about how the media is always sensationalizing the news, and it comes from both sides. And if it's so she went into a lot on how best to interpret what's being said in the media for everyone. The next headline speaker was Ron Insana, the CNBC analyst, and he went into a lot of what the current political race is doing and also how it impacts the markets and where the markets are going. And the last headline speaker was Rick Atkinson, who is a former Washington Post reporter and a historian, and he talked about military leadership and some of the qualities of Dwight Eisenhower and of George Washington, and how they can relate to today's leaders. And so, very informative, very interesting conference. We got a lot out of it. Sean, can you add anything about being there last week?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely concur with what Chris said in regards to the guest speakers. Very informative. But the breakout sessions where they had subject matter experts that taught some of the breakout sessions, and I thought that those were really informative as well. And the ones that I attended was how to institute electric fleet vehicles into the process of your company. Another one is how to use social media and finding our voice in regards to how we communicate information to our customers, to the community, and things like that. And I found that was very interesting because I know social media is a very powerful tool. And I was kind of looking at some of our social media and kind of just thinking about some suggestions as well, that we can use to find our voice, to inform customers of certain things. And they did some really good role plays. They had created some videos using local, we call them influencers of social media to help facilitate some of the commercials and, just get a laugh out of a lot of subjects in regards to power, electricity, and how to pay bills and things like that. And but I also felt as though I also attended a session in regards to recruiting when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how to attract different forms of talent, and those are the workshops that I attended. It was very informative, and definitely spoke with Chris and Jeff about some of those opportunities in regards to growth and how we can apply some of those things here at NPU.
And then we capped off the conference by receiving our Let Up Navajo appreciation flag. And so that was a very nice presentation of good that's been going on in the tribal nation, restoring power. And we will be at the NEPA conference, which is going to be in Broad, I'm sorry, Mystic Marriott next month. And we'll invite everyone out to that when we get the formal invites.
I'll take that one. Is sending linemen out to do these connections, is that relatively commonplace? Does everybody do it, or are we unusual and rare, or what?
There's two in New England who sent them out this year. Okay. There's been dozens of utilities that have done it. And this is United States citizens who have never had power or running water in their homes, and it's the last part of the United States that is not served. The rural communities all were taken care of by government programs back, in the 40s, 50s, and on. And so this is the last piece of America that is not powered. And when you look at what it takes to get one of the toughest. Yeah, one of the toughest terrain.
And is it just municipal utilities that do this, or?
Yeah, so this is the Navajo Nation is fed by the Navajo utility.
Okay.
And it's only municipals that are helping out.
You said 12 or so?
It's many more than that. It's dozens.
Okay.
Two went this year, Littleton and Norwich from Newark.
Well, you told us there are 2,000 municipals, so.
Yeah. But there's only so many slots they can also use.
Yeah, okay.
And they're also using this as a training for younger linemen as well. So that's something else that they're going to be expanding on and using this as a training opportunity as well as a way of helping out our fellow utilities.
Okay.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Chris. Is there any other comments on the APCA conference? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to strategic presentations. Tonight we have three. The first of which is the cost of service study and rate schedule.
Yeah, Laura will be providing us an updated schedule. Get those to pass out, Laura.
Steve's pulling it up on the screen, but I have hard copies. It might be a little easier to read. So we have our workshop as the first item on our schedule. That's this Thursday. So we'll be going through the cost of service study results and the rate design on Thursday. And the additional item that we'll be looking to the board for Thursday's meeting is a vote to set the public hearing date. And that public hearing date will be scheduled August 22nd. August 7th is our final date to publish the rates in the notice, so that those would be published in the newspaper, and that date, they have to be posted 14 days prior to the public hearing, so that August 7th date. On the August 22nd meeting, we'll be doing the public hearing. Baker Tilly will be available remotely for that meeting, so if there's any additional questions. The board has the opportunity to vote on the rates at that meeting, or vote on the rates at the September 26th meeting. In order for us to meet our target date of implementation of November 1st, that September 26th meeting is the last opportunity to take that vote. We would then have to publish our notices October 1st in order to have them in the paper 30 days prior to their effective date, and they become effective for buildings rendered on or after November 1st.
All right, thank you, Laura.
So I heard that Eversource on the news this morning is going to probably decrease their rates.
On July 1st, their purchase power rate is going down, but the distribution rate is going up.
How will that affect?
So we'll be talking about that in the next, in the executive session and in the meetings.
Right, so they had a 40% roughly increase, I think, in their.
Huge.
Right.
They're at 36 cents a kilowatt hour. And
Because of all, yeah, exactly. So now they're gonna drop it back down, like you said, roughly to work, but it'll be more because of the distribution. Right. They're gonna make a big splash about that.
Yeah.
But we did a good job last time explaining how our rates went up a few cents, and we don't know where it's gonna land.
Yeah, we have a great story which we'll be presenting very shortly.
But we're not gonna let them make a big splash and make us look bad, so, right? All right. Right. All righty, thank you, Laura. All right, and I see many people here I recognize, so we'll move on to the strategic plan update.
Craig, you're presenting?
Good shot.
Yeah, Craig Wagner from CDM. We also have Tim Dupuy to help out as needed from CDM as well.
Thank you, Chris. So tonight I've got a few slides on the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. I was here last month to talk about some of the water quality impacts of that project, and there were some questions that we pseudo deferred, just that we're still kind of working through the bid evaluations and other things. So tonight, a little bit more news on that front. You can help me out, Steve? Sure. Thank you very much. So I'm going to talk about the status of a few different things, and there are a few different conversations going on as part of this. We're working through the reviewing the bid and talking about the award of that. We're also talking to the state about their funding aspects. I'm going to go through some next steps that'll kind of guide us through where we go from here. In terms of reviewing the actual bid that came in recently, good news. So my company, CDM Smith, we've done a thorough job reviewing the bid, gone through and validated it against all the different items that are in it, validated against our own internal cost estimating group. And there were two areas of difference where we would have expected things a little bit differently and what they were presented, but looking at it and looking at what was presented in more detail, what we find is that it was really a product of the world that we're all living in right now. The supply chain issues, general cost escalation, labor market impacts can be a point to those to figure out why the differences were there. And really the differences between what we did expect, if we escalated our previous estimate up to bid day conditions, we're only off by a few percent. So given the bidding climate that we had and the market conditions that we're all looking at, it looks like a fair and go to bid. It was certainly a complete package that came in, which is what we want to see. So after some time of deliberation, our recommendation is to move forward with award to C.H. Nickerson Company, which is the contractor that submitted that bid. More to follow on that, but on the other side of it, talking to Connecticut Deep about their assistance in funding the project and approval for the overall project to go forward. There's been a few things we've been working with them on. They needed some things from us and we need some things from them. So recently, just a couple follow-up items, we did provide, NPU provided a letter to DEEP confirming the proposed use of future lab facilities. It was one of the things that they were hung up on, actually from a previous generation of DEEP regulators. They raised the question and we just worked together to put their concerns to rest, confirming that the wastewater lab that would be constructed was in fact a wastewater lab, and they like that answer. That was the correct answer. So we provided a few different forms of supporting information to DEEP over the past month and a half or so. In recent weeks, we've had two very positive meetings with their staff, including their management, talking through the different aspects of the project and different funding mechanisms that they have. And overall, it's been very, very promising and very positive. We're expecting a grant percentage to the Clean Water Fund in the range of 30 to 35% of this project. For a wastewater treatment plant upgrade, especially historically, that's exceptionally good.
When we were opening up the bids, we were thinking we're going to be at the 27% max, and we did a lot of work. We've done a lot of work over the months to try to work as well as we can with DEEP. And this, you were on the first call, Bill. The second call was even more positive. It's a collaborative effort to make sure we're maximizing our opportunities here. So, we're talking 30 to 35%. It's right now in the final drafts, and we are expecting that hopefully to be on the higher side of that range. And once again, very cooperative effort. Staff, CDM, and DEEP are all working together to come up with a good story to give us the best grant percentage we can get.
So the overall price is up because of the economy competition, all that sort of thing. And the grant is up. What's the net?
That's what we're working on. So we need that final number. We'll get into net. We'll get net. Cover that next step. So that's coming next slide, probably.
So after all of the local approvals happen, DEEP needs to review and approve and then authorize NPU to award the contract to C.H. So next steps in general, as Chris and I just said, we're waiting for the final grant percentage determination from DEEP. I did correspond with the two people that are helping us at the staff level of DEEP today, and they're still working on it, waiting for their management approval of what we've been talking about, but it's in that range that we just covered. When we get that, then we'll know exactly how much assistance the state can give to the project. So then we go through these other next steps, which is we need to review the affordability of the project overall, impact on sewer rate structure, then going to this board discussion and a vote, a council workshop for the first reading, go to the commission on the city plan, and back to the council for a vote from them, and then when everything is approved, and we're working through those steps, then we would need DEEP to authorize award to the contractor. So there are still some more steps, but things are looking positive from all sides.
So as soon as we do those first two, the grant percentage and the affordability analysis, we'll probably have to have a special meeting to get the board on board with what the final numbers are. We will be showing some potential rates for the first year in the cost of service study on Thursday, but there's a lot of unknowns still. and we're getting very close to where we think we need to be. Well, I also gave each of you the resolution that we want to have the board look at and approve for this project. And we'll do that after we know what the affordability analysis results are. This resolution has to cover the total cost, not the cost of subtracting the grant. So this is when we look at all the contingencies, this is what the final cost is going to be.
I thought we started off at about 1.5 million, something like that, and now we're at 1.6, is that roughly? But the increase was, I'm sorry, 106, I'm sorry.
So, I asked her to sign on the bottom line right now. So we know
I get a discount, but my mistake, all right. We were at 100.
Yeah, put the numbers up, right?
We were at 100, something go to the line.
Here we go. Yeah, so there are the numbers, and the construction bid from Nickerson is 162 million. Engineering services, which is CDM, to get us through the bids, and then get us through construction and construction oversight, 16 million. Financing during construction, unfortunately, we've got to pay interest while we're doing this work, is 5 million. Additional construction contingency is 8.1 million, and then we threw in legal, an additional 5% contingency, and that came to another 8.1 million for 199,200,000.
Okay.
So that's the bottom line of the project. Right now, that's what's here, and that could get adjusted, before we vote on it, but that's what we're gonna push forward.
But all the other costs there were sort of known, the one was unknown with the Nickerson bid, right? Pretty much.
Well, yes.
Okay. And that came in how much higher than what we were expecting? We're hoping for, I should say.
In the range of 5 or 6 million at the end of the day. If you were to escalate our estimate to actual bid day, we were like 156, they were 162, using round numbers. So you're off by a little bit in a very dynamic.
Yeah, exactly, with all the stuff going on with inflation and everything. And as Bob said, if we get a bigger grant, then it might be a wash.
I think so. I mean, you're looking at getting roughly a third of that number, roughly, as grant. The balance of it would be a 2% 20-year loan from the state.
It was about, every 1% of grant is about $2 million off the project, I think it is.
Pretty good.
I think the other thing to mention too is the team did a good job of getting something that was considered 0% eligible for last to the $4 million number. Now it's considered eligible for grant funding and loan funding. So they also added some components that are actually likely to receive funding, which is great.
And that memo just went out today, so.
So one of the things that potentially not in there, my math is right, we're talking about like $130 million, $135 million local cost. We're going to have to finance that, I presume.
Yes.
So there's going to be an interest cost. Calculate that, or?
That all rolls into the rates, and we're 20 million, 2%, correct?
20 and 2%.
Yep. I mean, 20 years, 2%.
20 years.
It's only 20 million.
Yeah. So when we're seeing these big interest rates happening, they haven't hit the state fund programs yet.
And I think Clean Water Fund is set at 2%. So if they fund this project, we have a 2% grant or 2% interest rate for 20 years. So that's set. So it's a great deal. They give you a lot of grant funding, hopefully as much as you can get, and then it's 2% interest financing.
So it's basically free money because inflation runs at 2% and it's higher now, so it's basically free money. Okay. Well, that's great, Craig. Is there any additional questions for Craig or CDM team? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Greg. We'll move on to the Fairview Reservoir Passive Recreation. Chris is going to speak on this.
I will be speaking on this.
All right.
Thank you,
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. So I sit on the Planet Conservation and Development team, which is made of the city planning department, NCDC sits on this, Public Works sits on this, the police department sits on this, Historical Society sits on this, and a lot of people from wetlands and other commissions. So it's a big team that's getting together and putting together the Planet Conservation Development that happens every 10 years. And one of the things that was requested was to enhance the green space of Norwich. And one of the questions was, can we better utilize Fairview Reservoir for recreation? So the Fairview Reservoir was constructed in 1868, and it's been inactive since the 70s. Basically, when Deep River Water Treatment Plant went online, this was deactivated. The safe yield is less than 1 million gallons. It's 3/4 million gallons per day. And our whole system is 5 million gallons. That kind of puts it in perspective. And there were water quality concerns of that reservoir. It's a small reservoir, small watershed, and the water quality is not that great. The dam itself is a high hazard Class C dam, and we've been working on that as well, making sure we're keeping that up to speed. And the Fairview tank is located on that property, and that feeds all of the Ockham area, and that's at the top of the hill. So we have a pump station down in front of the dam, feeds up to the top of the hill. This tank then feeds out into the distribution system. And if you go up there, you will never not see people walking around that reservoir. A lot of people go and park and walk around, duck under the fence, go around. A lot of people live in that neighborhood and also use it. And, right now we do all maintenance of the dam, all maintenance of the property. And if there's any trees that come down, we take care of them. If there's any issues, we take care of them.
You guys underwater at all from deep out of the dam?
What's that?
Any orders, administrative orders?
There's none right now. We do inspections, and there's some work that we need to do on it, but no administrative orders. So to make this a worthwhile effort for water quality or for a water supply, we need to reconnect it to the Bog Meadow Reservoir, and that piping's all been it would need to be redone, and that would support a safe yield of 1 million gallons a day. Then we need to put a package treatment facility out there, or pump it to another treatment facility, which would be a water line out to Deep River or something like that. A lot of money for a small amount of water that it doesn't have great quality. When we looked at in our water supply plan, what our priorities are, this was ranked 5th. The first is to reuse filtered backwash at the plants, which when we are doing our filtration process, there's excess water that is generated, and we could refilter that and reuse a lot of that water. So that's the #1 priority. Purchase water from Groton Utilities. That could be through either of the interconnects, the existing interconnect at Mohegan Sun or over at the Preston Riverwalk site. Develop a new groundwater supply in the Yannick River basins. We've done some preliminary work at looking at some wells out that way. And developing a new groundwater supply in North Franklin, South Wyndham, same thing, new well sites. And then it comes to activating Fairview. So I don't see this in the 20+ year, realm to get this in place.
Chris, where do we stand on the Groton Interconnect on the side of things?
That is a supply chain issue. We have approved all the plans. We have the project ready to roll. They're doing all the construction oversight, maintenance, and construction oversight. So we're just waiting for them to get going. And that should have happened last year. Long delays.
And is it financed?
So this year, we're going to pay out cash. We had received some federal funding for it. Because the project had already gone so far, we reallocated that federal funding, so we didn't lose it, we're reallocating it, but we're going to pay for this out of cash. And then the last is purchasing Village Pond. We came in front of the board on that. We looked at it. Once again, it's not a very cost-effective project. Small watershed, a lot of money to get by there.
What is the head like between Bog Meadow and Fairview?
gravity, but,
I think they're pretty close.
you know, it's not that far, yeah.
I was thinking the other day, if we could, develop a pump hydro system in town, that's crazy. You have to use, one of the reservoirs, and, it's gonna be a huge amount of money for not a lot of power, so. All right, enough of that. Next slide.
Okay, so, we, engaged with Weston and Sampson just to, look at what it takes for permitting passive recreation and some ideas on what could happen there. So, lookouts, bathrooms, boardwalks, hiking trails, walking loops, kayak launch, trail signage, even mountain biking out there. So a lot of things are possible, but this is not something we'd be looking at for utility ratepayers to pay for this. If this goes forward, this will be a public works park and rec kind of project.
Now, as far as the dam being a Class C, does that pose any risk that we have to then have insurance or something, or to get people away from it, or what would you do?
So when you talk about high hazard dams, it's collapse failure of the dam that you're worried about, downstream people. So whether we use this for passive recreation or we use it for a water supply, we still have to maintain that dam.
The fact that it's already Class C, does that mean they were looking at a huge bill someday, to have to replace it? Or it just means Class C, just means if it fails, it's causes a lot. Okay, it doesn't mean it's in bad shape.
No, we need to, no, it's not in bad shape, we need to maintain it. All right. We monitor seepage, we trim brush, we make sure there's no issues.
So
But we have a
Chris,
number of high hazard dams.
so Chris, as this goes forward, and you maybe haven't gotten to it, but as this presumably goes forward, is that going to remove NPUs, a lot of NPUs expenses in terms of maintaining all of this, which is essentially an unproductive asset for us? Or are we going to continue to have an obligation to maintain stuff?
Right. Why don't we go to the next slide, Steve? But what we want to do is we want to talk about finding out what the city wants to do, and they're very interested. I did a walkthrough with Pat and with Deanna and a few other members of the team. We walked the site. There is a location on Canterbury Turnpike where the city has some land that they would like to make into a parking lot access down to the trails. And what we want to do is we want to talk about maintaining this as a long-term supply, but we can have Public Works take on a lot of the maintenance. When trees come down, we're not sending out our crews or a tree crew to go take care of it. It becomes a public park, and just no different than if Mohegan Park has a tree come down.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is share some of these costs, still keep it in the playbook for future generations. That may be gold in 50 years. Right now, it's a liability, but it's hard to say how valuable that water will be. If we're in Arizona or California, it would be gold, right? And we may be there someday.
If you wanted to say, for example, maybe have some sort of agreement with the land trust to take over the maintenance.
Avalonia is somebody that they're partnering with in a lot of areas. And after we start putting together a plan for this, I anticipate the same thing for Tapper 1, 2, and 3. And there's less use of those reservoirs, or less likely use of those. And 2 and 3 are already breached. So it's really a nice green space, a place where we can't develop, we can't do anything, to use that land. It's green space, it's notified in the plan. So this would be a good recreational area and asset to the city.
What's the acreage of the FPU owned land?
So we have that, Steve? I know we had a map.
I don't know if it's on here, probably not.
No, we can get that though.
We can get that, yeah.
I think it would get a lot of use for passive recreation.
It's huge.
It would be, I used to walk around it when I was a kid, very close like it. It's beautiful.
It is a beautiful area.
It would be a nice thing. It's actually beautiful to see.
We saw an eagle overhead when we're there. And if you look like that neighborhood, whatever that social media thing is, we had left and somebody spotted a bear right where we were, like 2 hours later, a black bear. So there's a lot of nice wildlife out there.
Nice.
Yeah, wait for a bear to show up in my backyard, then the bird feeders come down.
There's another area that they're probably there, they just haven't found your.
Yeah, they haven't found me yet, lovely. That's nice, okay, that's very good.
Chris, what do you want us to do about this?
This is informational right now, and as we start having more discussions with Public Works and Park and Recs, if there's anything that becomes formalized, we'll bring it forward.
I mean, I would think one of the immediate benefits of something like this is that there's still a group from the Canterbury Turnpike area that's protesting Business Park North. Browning is talking about bringing suit and all of that sort of stuff. And this is very close to Business Park North. And one of their objections is, well, you're taking away passive recreation. Well, we take one hand and give the other. Yeah, this is going to be a terrific passive recreation.
Well, do we think that this geographically, the number of acres here is comparable to what is Business Park North?
Well, there's a couple things that are different. First of all, anybody up there is trespassing. Actually, they're trespassing in both. But here we're promoting a recreational use. If Business Park North didn't happen, that park would get sold to somebody else. It wouldn't become a city park.
Yeah, I understand, but we're essentially would be, like you said, not just replacing one with the other. If the numbers are comparable, I think that would make it that much more valuable.
And anyone who's been to both places, this is much more picturesque and beautiful than, those flat fields with underneath the power lines.
All right. Is there any additional discussion about the Fairview Reservoir passive recreation? That was excellent. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
So, thanks, Chris.
He's busy. Yeah. All right, moving on to other business. Is there any other business to come before this board tonight?
Yes, so can we amend the agenda? Okay, you got this.
Yeah, we got that. I just want to get the way it's written. I have to ask about other business. Probably no other business. I just said, real quick, in the last couple of weeks, Ford and General Motors and Rivian all announced that they're going to adopt the Tesla charging plug standard. And Tesla took it upon themselves to call it the North American Charging Standard, even though it's not recognized by any regulatory board. But Tesla has a 10-year head start on charging, and they've got the most chargers in the country. And all these manufacturers look at the costs of making electric cars, and then they look at the cost of the charging network. And they had a collective, reckoning and said that we got to team up with Tesla to make sure that we sell cars that they can get charged. And Tesla said, that's great, but you're going to have to use my plug. So it just became the national standard, the North American charging standard. And the interesting thing is that every other car that's sold in this country and in Europe uses what they call a CCM plug, which has for the AC, it has a J1772 connector, and then below it, there's two big lugs for DC charging. So the connector is almost as big as my phone. And a Tesla charger is as big as, the plug is as big as like one of my lenses. So it's just a huge difference in the size of the plug. And the difference is that Tesla, as in typical fashion, they says, well, we're just going to use the AC pins and the DC pins will be the same pins. We'll let the car figure it out. And once you plug in, and that's what happens. And one of the big problems with the so-called CCM plug is they have to be able to communicate with 25 different manufacturers that all have slightly different communication standards. That's one of the harder parts. You don't realize it, but in the connector, you've got the power pins and you got two small communication pins. So when you plug in, it says, oh, hi, I'm a car. Oh, hi, I'm a charger. Let's get together and charge and whatever. But a lot of people that own non-Teslas will plug into a charge station somewhere and it doesn't connect because somebody changed a couple lines of code and now you're at an EV Go station or something like that. Says, hey, we didn't get your update. So sorry. And it's a big giant pain. So once everybody goes over the Tesla standard, then it's all the same. And there's one communication standard and one plug. So just let you know. So that'll be I think that'll be an improvement. All right, is there any additional business to come before this board? All right, I will ask the board to, I'll entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add executive session.
So,
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Bill. Is there any discussion on amending the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Are there any
Aye.
abstentions? All right, are there any abstentions? All right, the motion carries, and so we have an executive session on the agenda, and I believe it is time that we move into executive session. Is that correct, Chris?
That's correct.
We have a, okay. I don't have all the fancy words in front of me. Unless somebody else does.
Discuss proprietary information.
Discuss proprietary information. I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session. Thank you, William. Thank you, Robert. All right. Is there any discussion? Thank you, Sean. Any discussion about moving into executive session? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Aye.
Are there any abstentions?
Mike says aye.
Thank you, Mike. All right, we are in executive session. And Chris, who would you like to remain behind?